Okay, so what we figured out is the inductor coil over here was the wrong size, the tuning capacitor over here was shorted, and for some reason they had the output trace, this trace here, let's zoom in here guys. This output trace here, they had hooked to this coil that goes back to ground. So it's taken all the output RF, and that's the reason we couldn't get the input to settle of the driver. It was snubbing it to ground. Now, I took this off and I fixed this coil over here and then added capacitors to it, and I go and I key it and it made it exactly one key and it blew the relay up because it took off and it was making like 2,400 watts worth of power. So for experimentation purposes, as I was figuring out what the hell was going on, let's run our ISO gain down here so you can actually see what the hell I got in here. I just put HGs in here. Now, the guy that owns this doesn't want to own it no more. And I think this is pretty cool. This is about as close to the legendary Hue amplifier, my buddy Junkman, that's the closest one I've ever come across to his. But what I want to do now that it is mine is I want to modify this. I want to take all the shit that's the shortcomings in this box out. I just kind of like the case style. So I'm going to take this messenger and I'm going to upconvert it to something I like. So that means the relay section over here is going to change. I'm going to probably bypass the low, medium, and high circuitry over here. I'm going to upgrade these to Toshibas to match the rest of the 16 match Toshibas that are in here. We're going to modify and upscale our power distribution network. We're going to change out stuff like this I don't like, where they've got the coax going through the splitter or the combiner portion of the network, and then we're going to fill it up full of these big bastards because I got the room and I want to see what we can make this do. I bet you it's going to be somewhere around 3,300 watts when we're said and done, because then I'm going to use a Striker 955 to drive this 2-pill section, which will make it do around 300-400 watts, probably 450, somewhere in there. 450 going in here. I don't have to worry about oversaturating nothing, and I bet you this thing will last forever. Eventually where this is going to end up is in my personal rig, sitting on top of 3 supercapacitors. It's going to be all in one cabinet. I think it's going to look pretty slick, won't take up a lot of room in my truck, and at the end of the day, hey, I don't have to get every last watt of it out of it, because believe me when I tell you, I only use this or use the radio on my truck once a year, for 3 days a year, and then it sits in standby. Yes, that's when I go to the break, at the break, and then when I'm on my way home from the break. On that note, I'm going to do my McNasty. All this power wire's got to come out. This little woefully inadequate 150 amp Anderson clip, no. 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 Hell no. Hell to the no, no, no. Hell no. We're going to change these combiners, this combiner, this combiner, this combiner, this combiner, this combiner, this splitter, this splitter, this splitter, this splitter. And I am going to leave it biased for sideband, even though I have not talked sideband in a decade. Just for shits and grins. Shall return. So, we're getting really close to the end of this story, and I realized I haven't touched back with you guys and checked in and said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I just been over here building, having a good time. Working through all the challenges of getting this thing to work with its current configuration and make it work the way I wanted it to, and as clean as I possibly can make it work. Like I said in the last little segment, I'm building this for me. I'm not building this for anybody else. I'm building this for me. Now, I would sell it, but it's got absurdly expensive transistors in it. You know, Toshiba 2879 non-red dots, which are $250 a piece. But it took 3 full days worth of work on this. I worked on this all weekend because I could. Weekends were my time. I spent most of my weekend actually hanging out with my wife. I had my anniversary and my kid's birthday this weekend, and it was great. We had a great time, but I wanted to come out here and finish this today. I got a bunch of other bigger projects I want to move on to, but we've upgraded this thing significantly from what it was. When we started it barely made 80 watts of power. And then or 800 watts of power, and then we figured out what they'd done wrong there, so then we changed that, and then that made it do 2400 or 2500 watts of power, but it was pulling 380 amps. So right out the chute, we had a failure on this board, which we're going to save this for a future repair, because these messenger boards are always needed in something, someplace. This is our low, medium, and high remote control switch for our band switch. Went in and changed that, got rid of it completely. Now it's just direct high drive. And then we got rid of this relay. And these are all the parts I changed out in this box. I changed out a ton of stuff because I wanted to make it work my way, and I wanted to upgrade it my way. I mean, if somebody was to make me an offer on this, it would be absurd. I've been looking for years for one just like this. Years, like 8. So it'd take a lot to get it out of my cold dead hands. We put the fans on a relay. We added an actual jack for the fans. Cleaned up and hand tied everything for our remote leads and shortened up all the leads. Replaced our Bakelite connectors with Teflon, gold-plated Teflon, silver jacketed. Replaced all of our output transformers with big Type 61, so we don't have to worry about core saturation, even though we're never going to run this thing hard enough to get the monster amount of power out of it that this thing can do. If I put enough drive into the 16 pill section, this thing would make roughly 4,000 watts. But we're going to hit it with the 2 pill section, this right here. This is two 2290s, Toshibas. And yes, when I say I removed the board, I did it cleanly and professionally. 2 matched red dot Toshibas, driving 16 non-red dot Toshibas. It's still fully biased. This is our relay down here. There's actually 2 relays stacked on top of each other. This is our relay that controls the bias circuit. This is the relay that controls transmit. That's important because we had to make it so that everything on the remote still works. Like I said, added a relay over here for a fan. Here's our snubbing diode. But then we upgraded the relay. Now, I would have gone to a 30 amp or even a 25 amp relay instead of this 15er if I was going to drive it that hard. I don't want it to do that. I want it to do exactly what it is doing. We went in here, upgraded our power wires, which was just 2 little pieces of 8. We went up to aught gauge. We handmade our mounting bracket over here in the corner. And then we handmade this bracket after adding a distribution and upgraded distribution bus to carry more current. We made this distribution bar, which is really stiff, and then soldered in our 1/aught gauge wire. Made sure all of our coax links were the same length, and when we removed the input drive wire that was going through the output splitter, it made no sense to me, but they did what they did. Filled it up with a bunch of 5 watt 100 ohmers, but this is the neatest thing I've had come along through here in a while. I was doing a search for this. This is actually Teflon heat shrink. It's clear Teflon heat shrink, and we've heat shrunk the wire from here to here. So that's clear Teflon. That's PTFE. I don't know how they did this. I don't know what chemical magical schmoo went on to make this possible, but it is a real deal, real thing. Let me find it. I actually came across this stuff because I was doing some RC car stuff, and that's what it looks like. It shrinks. This PTFE, it doesn't burn, but it melts. Or it doesn't melt, pardon me, it shrinks. It's amazing stuff. I've been rubbing my soldering iron up against it, and it doesn't. It's just neat. This is neat. So this is like an extra layer of armor on this wire, because this jacket's really soft, and I didn't want to have any chance of anything ever melting through or getting through this thing. But we washed it. We got that all cleaned up, but this represents no less than probably 40 hours worth of work, meticulously making it work and not ripping up any traces. There's certain parts of it I wanted to leave in here, like the splitter and the combiner network. I wanted to make that work with my style transformers and my style of windings. These are 1%, 1,000 puff caps. Good luck finding those on Earth anymore. They've been consumed by the radio community 1,000-fold over. I mean, those are legit Simcoes, which I've got just like a handful of those left. But the neatest portion of the whole story to me was making this work. This is all still fully functional, except for the high, medium, and low. Oh, and I bypassed preamp. I don't believe in preamp, but everything on here still works as it should. Our TX light still works when we key the... Everything works just the way it should. And I wanted to hold true to that theme. I've always liked these little remotes for Messenger. I think it was awesome that they went to an 8-pin, like Kenwood, or an Alinco jack. I thought that was really cool. Let's pan back here. Let's go look at some watt meters over here. That's 1,000 in the middle, right here. 1,000 in average, and of course, 1,000 watt, but in 5x positions. So the 30 is going to be 3,000, and 20 is going to be 2, and 10, and so on. Let's go over here and take a look at our spectrum analyzer here real quick. We'll wait for it to focus. Frequency steps in 1 hertz. We're starting at 0. Our center is at 250 megahertz, and our stop is at 430 megahertz. Reference line is -1 dBm down, and we're doing steps in 10, all the way to the 4. So, let's see here. Let's take our mic and turn our mic gain down. And we'll show you what our radio looks like. That's radio. That's the amplifier. That's stupid clean, in my opinion. Stupid, stupid, stupid clean. So, the next time somebody says it's a splatter box just because it's a CB amp, they probably don't know what the hell they're talking about. Since the transistor makes it almost impossible to get anything past 30 megahertz done anyhow. So, we're going to go over here. We'll turn the mic gain up on the radio now. We show you radio drive. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hello. You see that? I mean, that's some big dick swinging needle movement over there. Check it out. Hello, 1 2 1 2. Hello. Wow, that's just so morally depressing. It's not even funny. Go ahead. We'll put the peak meter on 1x. You hear a little bit of talkback going on in the background. I've got one of my outside radios monitoring me. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Now I'm on the derail bench radio, and I got it set up to do exactly 100 watts, because that's what I want. So, let's go ahead, we'll kick on the box. Hello, audio. Hello, audio, audio. So, what I'm getting at here is it makes 2,900 watts of power. It's squeaky clean. But this is the part that I think is really fun, is this here. Hello, audio, 1 2 1 2. Hello, 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 hello. By getting rid of the small power wires, changing the tuning, upgrading the power distribution network, increasing our ground potential by using our heatsink to do most of our current distribution instead of these little tiny pieces of like 14 gauge wire, we have saved ourselves over 100 amps worth of power being consumed by the amplifier. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So we're looking at about, on average, from 186 amps worth of consumption and almost a full 1,000 watts less. Well, 600 watts less. 3,000 watts of power, 189 to 190 amps worth of current being consumed versus 286 amps and 2,200 watts made. This thing runs so cool, it's crazy. I was thinking I might need to have to punch a hole in it to let air move through it. And I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Hello, 121212. Let's go up here. Let's take a look at the input tune on this thing real quick. It's a 5-watt slug between the striker, the D-rail radio. Hello, 1212121212. Nice and low. Front of the radio even says it's happy, which that's some kind of weird miracle in itself. Hello, 12121212. I believe the bird meter. Just myself. I just do. So, on that note, let's bring this on home. I can never see this thing making more than 3,000 watts of power, just based off of its drive. We hot rodded the snot out of this 2-pill section. So I know that it's making, because I've measured it. I bypassed all this other gobbledygook and went right over to the relay, and I looked at it, and I'm making about 500 watts of power with the little striker hitting it. That's not enough to drive the rest of the 16 transistors to saturation, and that's what I want. I want a nice slow cruiser, but in the same breath, it's still fully biased. If you guys look down in here, you'll see that this circuit looks remarkably familiar to what the rest of us already use for bias. Why? Because everything is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Here's our load diode. Here's our filtration cap. Here's our isolation capacitor and our load resistor. That input, 12 volts, load resistor, switch bias off a relay, goes through a choke, and then to the input transformer. Amazing, right? I know. It's the exact same circuit that's in the Messengers and the Palomar, that's in X-Force, that's in Dave Main. Now that's in Fat Boy and in my boxes. It's the same circuit. There's no voltage regulator because it's not necessary. There's guys out there that'll debate that so they can sound like they're in charge and they know something about something about something. Hey Fred, did you hear that Kevin built himself a fully voltage? I wouldn't want a voltage regulated bias circuit. As the voltage goes up and comes down on the box, you want the circuit to be able to move in synchrony with that. So that means you have to have a voltage sense unit, not just a regulator, because that's what happens, you guys, is when your voltage that's coming out of your regulator versus the voltage the components on are too far apart, you end up popping apart. Where if you have the two running off the same current, as your voltage increases, so does your current, and it allows the circuit to move linearly with the input voltage to the box. So if you wanted a fully regulated circuit, you'd have to have a volt sensing unit so that you could turn the current up and down, otherwise turn your voltage regulator up and down as the voltage fluctuates up and down in operation. Don't get me started. I had a guy call me on this, and he was just insistent. He's like, so let me explain some things to you, young man. I'm like, oh. I shut up and listen, because you'd be amazed the shit that I've had people call and tell me that I have learned, because they start out real arrogant and like angry and justified, I guess would be the best way to put it. And I just sit there and I listen, because you never know what you're going to learn. You never know what you're going to learn. Never. But he started out, he goes, you need to understand some things about bias. Okay, go ahead. And he went off on his little tangent. I said, but how do we account for the voltage differential between operation and standby, and how are you doing the current control? Well, the regulator takes care of all that, makes it fixed. Yeah, but the voltage in the bias in the circuit doesn't stay fixed, so therefore the operation mode of the transistor is going to deviate quite greatly from the actual current operation of the component. Well, you got to understand, that's how it works in audio amplifier. It's just like, okay. Listen, there's amp builders out there that want to use a voltage regulator in their bias. It's not necessary, but spot on, go Jesus. Yep, get on, you crazy child. Do what you got to go do. Just saying. So we eliminated the whole keying board, went to a bigger relay, put it out here to where it'd be easier to take stuff off of it and pull the relay out and clean it if I needed to. I'd rewire the motor to make it work properly for just display functions, and significantly overhauled the box, getting more power out of it. 3100 watts is the most I've seen with it. I can drive it with anything from an SRF 490 to a 955 to a 2950 if I want to, and it makes the same flipping watts. Well, the 2950 only makes it make 2800 or some shit, so don't matter. I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to get the tin on it, and I want to get fans on it, and I want to get this thing completed, because I'm not gonna lie, I got a special kind of cap coming. That's probably going to be one of the next videos that you guys get to see. Maybe not the next one, because the next one's going to be on a 1x4, and then the one after that's going to be a 4-pill that's all up for sale. But sometime this week there's going to be a super capacitor video where I'm going to show you guys how to take a 48 volt super capacitor and make it work on 16 volts. And it'd be 1500 farad and a really stupid cheap. So let's put some lids on this. I'll be back. Well, my search for this has finally ended. I do feel. Hell, I don't know. I know my friend Renegade's got that actual amp, but it's in far, 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 far horrible condition compared to what this thing was in. At least the last time I seen it, which was over a decade ago. So I don't know. He did call here not too long ago and offered it up as an option, as something that, you know, he'd be interested in trying to get rebuilt and restored back to its former glory. And of course, I said, of course. Of course. Look, this thing is far from perfect, but let's face it, for what it is, it's pretty friggin' awesome. And it's exactly what I want, and it's built to my specifications, not to... I could have taken these same parts and put them in a standard chrome cube and gotten a full another 1000 watts out of it and been just as happy, but this is something I've always wanted, and I always wanted to have in my own truck, and now I've got it. Hello. It does exactly what it's designed to do. Just makes power. Hello. 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 3,000 of clean watts. It's got enough airflow on it. I mean, I don't like these fans. They're too loud, in my opinion. So, believe it or not, I've already got 4 fans on order. Some Sun-Ons that are, well, going to turn slower, move more air, and not make as much noise. But this is it. This is the end of this conversation with this particular box. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following along on this little story. Believe me, you're going to see the final installation with this thing in my truck, along with the super capacitor, which is roughly the same size. I'm going to paint the super cap black, so it's just going to be one big black monolith sitting in the back of my truck with RG393 coming out of it. So there's more on this to come. You guys have a good night, good day, good week, whenever you're deciding to tune in and watch this. If this is your first time watching, I say welcome. If you've not, or decided to return once again, you are a repeat offender, and I say thank you. Gentlemen, from the biggest dock in Idaho, I finally got to build something for myself. The end of this saga is near. I'm running out of projects that I wanted to build for myself. Got the biggest amp in Idaho, got the biggest beam, pretty soon gonna have it on the biggest tower. This little tiny, believe it or not, 16 pill makes me the biggest mobile in Idaho. Pathetic that is. That's really pathetic, actually. Then again, I could just go put the 64 pill back in the other truck and still have the biggest mobile, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That'd make me the biggest mobile in the Northwest, which I don't care anything about. Guys, I got to run. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you. Bye-bye.